Okay, Shin Samech Bet. We're starting Seif Yud, and now we're going to cover quite a bit from Surah HaPetach Ishis. Okay. So you saw pictures we sent out, and what's up, and I've tried to photocopy a few this time. Okay, Yud, let's read. Just Surah HaPetach, just to point out, so we're using Surah HaPetach. We're gonna read it. It's basically two posts, and then another, two vertical posts, and then another horizontal post, string, something that goes on top, and that's gonna create a wall. So just to point out, Surah HaPetach, does it work? De'araisa. So it's a question mark. If Surah HaPetach works De'araisa, or only De'Rabbanan, and what situations? Basically, if you're gonna have like a canopy, you make a canopy, and you've just got a roof, and on all four sides, it's only Tzurat HaPetach, so that's not going to work, at least for a din daraisa. For Reshus Harabim, that's not going to work. Let's say you have two walls, and it could be connecting each other, or two opposite walls, and it's completely mefulash, wide open in the middle. So then most Rishonim will say, that's going to be, I'll save that for next. That's going to be talking about the walls. So I'm just going to say it's a big discussion. When does Surah HaPetach work on a din daraisa? So we'll leave it at that. It's a separate sugya. Okay. Again, Yud. Im asat Surah HaPetach afil lepirtza yetera me'eser. Now, if Surah HaPetach can be as long as you want it to be. It could be a few tfachim, it could be many, many hundred of amot. It doesn't matter. Mutter, it works. Okay, because normally a pirtza, a complete wall that's missing, or an opening in any wall of more than 10 amos is a real problem. Sometimes you see people build around their property or a house, what they call an eruv, it just means four walls of Tzurat HaPetach, and sometimes they have openings, especially for driveways and things like that. If there's an opening of 10 amos, it's 100%, it's a breach, and it ruins the whole Reshus HaYachid. You may have four walls, but you don't have a Reshus HaYachid. Okay. V'afilu lo na'atz ela arba'a kundisin v'arba ruchot v'asat Tzurat HaPetach al gabein. Mutar. So this is the case where you have a canopy, you have a base type of thing, and you basically have four walls made of four Surat HaPetach. So it works. V'hanimili b'chatzer u'mavoy sheyesh behen diyurim. So this works by a person's chatzer, by a person where people live. It works. Aval ba'bika in an open field, or you go camping. Lo mahane, it doesn't work. B'shekol haruchot ayidei Tzurat HaPetach. If all of them are Tzurat HaPetach, so then that doesn't work. L'harambam ein Tzurat HaPetach moyel epirtzia termi eser ela inkein omen mirbal aparatz. Rambam just also Shulchan Aruch holds you can have a Tzurat HaPetach as long as you want it to be. The Rambam qualifies it. He says, wait, Tzurat HaPetach sometimes could be longer, but sometimes it's maxed out at 10 amos. When is the case of 10 amos? Is if it's going to be parutz more than omed. But if you have omed merubal parutz, then you're allowed to have it even longer. And then, if it's omed merubal parutz, then it's allowed to be even in all four directions. Okay. Or at least okay. Alright, so let's go on. Yud Aleph. Mahut Surat HaPetach. What is it, Surat HaPetach? Which we said, Kana mikan, v'kana mikan, v'kana al gabein. Two sticks, vertical sticks, and then one stick on top. Afilu einu nogea behen, ela sheish b'neim kama amos. Even if it's many amos or meters way above. They don't have to be touching. They don't have to be connecting. it has, the thing on top, well, let's read. Ubilvad shehe gova akani mishemikan umikan asara tfachim. The minimum requirements is that each kana, each stick, is at least 10 tfachim high. V'yu mechuvanim keneged kana ha'elyon. And that it's, and that the top rod must be 100% on top of the vertical sticks. Right? It has to mamish be covering it. Does not have to be touching. It could be 100 feet up. But when you're looking from a bird's eye view, it can't be off to the side. It has to be where it's aligned perfectly. Correct. So you basically, once you have your vertical post 10 tfachim high, you can imagine it goes up l'shamayim straight up, and it has to touch the string or the horizontal rod that's up on top.
The gap doesn't need to be less than 4.
No, the gap could be as much as you want. Okay. אפילו אינו נגיע בהן, אפילו שיש ביניהם כמה אמוס, ובלבד שיהי גובה הקנים שמכאן 10 טפחים, ויהיו מכוונים כנגד קנה העליון, ואם חיבר הקנה העליון משני הקנים, או לאחד מהן מן הצד. Now let's say you attach the top rod on the side. Again, there's, I guess you can kind of see in pictures, but basically, you have your vertical, your top, I don't know what we're going to call it, a top rod that's connected. If you attach it from the sides of the two posts, so then it doesn't work. And if you were to tie a string around those two posts, and then the string, the entire rope never goes on top of the rod. It's always on top of the posts. It's always just around the posts, and then you connect it to the other side, to the other post. That's 100% no good. Lo mahane. Well, we'll see in a second. The Taz does allow it. Hold on. V'tzarich shiyu akanim shebitzadim chazakim l'kabel delet kol shehu. Now the sides have to be, for tzurat petach, it needs to be strong enough that it can hold up a door. Because we're making like tzurat petach, like an opening for a doorway. Afilu shel kash or shel kanim, but it could be extremely light. It could be just a small door made up of straw, which really does not weigh much, and that's fine. Aval kana she'al gaban sagi b'kol shehu v'afilu gemi mehani. So Shulchan Aruch writes, but the rod that's on top, it could be the lightest item, it could be any material, it just has to cover from on top of each kana and each kana. And from each post on each side. Okay. And that does not have to be of any strength. The only thing is it must be where it's not going to blow down and fall off on Shabbos. It has to be, everything has to be where it's not going to not fall apart on Shabbos. The two things on the two posts on the side, they have to be where they're not moving around, they're jiggling around in the wind, because they come in place for forming a wall. And we learned that a wall is not allowed to blow in the wind. It needs to be where it's stationary, even with a normal wind. So that's important, and it only applies to the side posts, but does not apply to the stringlets. We'll call it a string on top. Okay. Right? And if it's not 100% aligned, like we mentioned before, then it's 100% puzzle. The Taz has the opinion that if you tie the string, it's in one of the pictures, if you tie a string towards the top, and the string never goes on top, but it's next to it, so he holds it's okay, and pretty much all the poskim disagree, and so it's not generally not relied upon, if at all. Okay. What else? Let's say you have part of the post that sticks out above the string. It's in the pictures. If in other words, let's say you make a big, on the top of your vertical posts, you have a big deep groove, and now the string is in the bottom of the groove. So now you have part of the thing sticking up above. So that's a question. It's a suffix and a poskim. Okay, we'll still leave it like that. But the Mishnah Berurah says at least if it's basically at the same height as the top. It just goes inside the groove, a mashahu, so then it's okay. Again, if you're going to have a pole, and you drill a hole, and you go right through the pole, and you're going to put a string right through the pole, again, so these are areas of a suffix. If you were to put a nail on top of the vertical posts, and you tie a string around that nail, that for sure be okay, because the string is on top of the posts. We don't consider that min atzad.
Why don't you consider the nail to be part of the post?
I'm not sure. Good question. Perhaps all the cases work, perhaps they don't. It's a question mark. But that's, okay. Mishnah Berurah raises the question on I don't have it sent it out. Picture of, let's say you have, telephone wires. Let's say you can have cases where you have the post, and then you have like a T. You have a side post, a side rod, or a side piece. There you go. And you have a little stick that jets out from the side, and you put the string on top of those sticks. So that's also generally not recommended when building eruvin. I think that's one of the issues in some city eruvin, machlokas issues, but that's generally not relied upon. But again, that's discussed again in the poskim if that's considered on top, because it's on top of something, but it's not on top of your main post. Okay. Mishnah Berurah points out if the two posts don't have to be the same height, and the string can even be on an angle, on a slope. That's okay. What happened now? So the Mishnah Berurah first says that the string does not have to be very strong; it can move in the wind, and then he quotes from the Mishkanos Yaakov, who says it needs to be where it doesn't, even the top string can't move at all. So lechatchila, we try and do that, and it can't, so it doesn't move at all. And he also recommends that it should not even sag going down. Okay, seems like the Mikar Din, there's what to rely on, but okay, lechatchila, we would try and make it so that it doesn't sag. What else? Anything important to bring out? We briefly mentioned before, we'll just mention it again. Let's say you were going to have a canopy. So we said you can even use the roof of a canopy. If you just have 4 poles on every corner of a canopy, we had this in Shin Mem, I think it was the end of Shin Mem Vav. You have a canopy on top, and on every corner you have a pole, so that can be considered Itzurat HaPetach. The Mishnah Berurah says, even if it's just a flat roof, you can say we're not saying Pitikra on all 4 sides, we're saying Tzuras HaPetach you can use on all 4 sides, because each one of the 4 posts, right, is the 2 side posts, and the string on top is the actual edge of the roof. Just to point out, the Chazon Ish says though, but that only works if part of the edge of the roof comes down a little bit over also. So okay. Let's go to Yud Bet. Kippah. Okay, now you have Perush Sha'ar Asoy B'Kippah. You have an entranceway which is, it's round. A dome. Very good. Im yesh biragleha. If on the 2 sides, dahainu kodem sheitchil hitagel. In other words, you first have 2 side posts, the walls are straight, and then comes the dome afterwards, after the asara tfachim, then muteret mishum tzurat petach. That's okay. You're allowed to have tzurat petach that's round going up. And just to point out, there's a machloket, and here I'll just show you the pictures. If the archway, or the dome, the arch is, if it's arched both on top and on bottom, in other words, it's just there's no flat surface, so then happens to be a machloket, if that works. Certainly if it's straight across on the top, that for sure works. And if you have the 2 vertical, that also, I think the Chazon Ish writes, and others, that also works. It's considered like an arch. So then, okay, it's considered like an arch. So, alright. Okay, let's go on to the next one. Shin Samach Gimel, Dine mavwe velechi. So now we're coming to make walls. It's going to be a little bit of chatzer, but also mavwe and lechi. Let's see. Just a reminder, if we didn't say, how many walls do you need to be a reshus hayachid deraisa? So the Rambam holds you need to have 3 walls and a mashahu, or 4, in the beginning of a 4th wall. And what most Rishonim, how we paskin, is you only need 3 walls, even if the 4th wall is completely open. Even if you were to have 2 walls, and then you have a certain tikkun for the 3rd, that would also work. Okay? But sometimes it doesn't work. Just having 2 walls sometimes won't work if the rabbim are able just to walk right through it. Then rabbim umervat le'mechitzta, because if it's not a proper wall and people are still walking right through it, then that kind of ruins the wall and it's no longer as a din rishus yachid. Okay, Aleph. Makom sheyeshol shalosh mechitzot. So here, the Shulchan Aruch paskins, once you have 3 mechitzos and the 4th one is completely open, that is a full rishus hayachid deraisa. Asur chachamim, but the chachamim asur latalto bo ad sheaseh shum tikkun barvit. But he says, midirabanan, you still need something at the 4th wall. Right? Mishmur points out, it's obvious, doesn't matter if we're talking about Carmelis or rishus harabim, you still need that 4th wall. You need a 4th wall, maybe derabanan, maybe deraisa, but you still need that 4th. Okay. Well, it's obviously midirabanan. But anyways, according to the Shulchan Aruch. Right, otherwise it's doma to a rishus harabim and there it goes there. Beis. Chatzer shenifratz b'milu'o ad 10 amos. Now, let's say you have a chatzer, and it became completely open on one wall up to 10 amos. If the wall is only 10 amos, so then nitar bepas rachav arba'at tfachim shi'amidenu mitzad echad b'makom haparutz. And all you need to do is on one side put up a wall of 4 tfachim. Okay? One wall of 4 tfachim, and that'll be enough. Right? 10 high and 4 wide. That'll be enough to enclose it. If you wanted, so you have a choice. One is on one wall, one side. You have a whole wall is missing, right? So you have 3 walls. On the open, where there's no wall, on one side you can put a small wall that's 4 tfachim wide. Or the other option is, on both sides, dai b'shnei pasin shel shnei mashuyim. You just put a mashahu on each side. You put a little rod, a little stick on each side, and that's enough. V'hu adin l'nishtayra mehem kota revi banoi keshir abat tfachim makom echad. Or you had 4 walls and then it fell down. And what was left is 1 tefach on each side. So then that also works. Of course, it's obvious, must be at least 10 tefachim high. Mishnah Berurah points out that according to the Shulchan Aruch, if you have an open wall, there's a missing wall, you have the option of putting a mashahu on each side. But if the wall was there and it fell, then it must be a tefach remaining on each side. The Mishnah Berurah says, he holds, it's a machlokas, it's even a machlokas among Poskei Ashkenaz. The Mishnah Berurah writes though, it's the same, as long as even if there was a wall and it collapsed, as long as there's still a mashahu bolet on each side, that works. And you don't have to have a full tefach. Okay? Even if the opening is not 4 tfachim, but it's the whole wall, even if the 4th wall, it's ad sheheba pachos mishlosha, unless it's less than 3 tfachim because of lavud. But the 4th wall, you need to have something. Okay? But what if the pirza was more than 10 amos? We started. So then you have to fix it with, it won't be enough to fix it with just a board of 4 or a mashu on each side. Then you need to have, it tzorat petach, so that it won't be an opening of 10. And I think we'll just say here, no, we'll save it for later. Okay. Fine. Let's go on. Gimel. Mavoi sheish bo shlosha mechitzot. Now you have a mavoi and it's got 3 walls. Uparotz mitzad revi, and it's open on the 4th one. Hitiru belechi. All you need to do is just put one little lechi. So you see which is like one little beam. That's what the word means. It's a little beam. But again, it could be she'ovel v'roch bo kol shehu. But it could be a mashehu. The thickness, both, 2 dimension, it could be a mashehu, it just has to be 10 tefachim high. Okay? Now, you see that we're a little more mekel ba mavoi. Mishnah Berurah points out because for a chatzer, we said it needs to be pas arba. If you're only doing one side, you have to have at least a wall of 4 tefachim, and here you have to have just a mashehu is enough on one side. It says because by a chatzer, there's more tznius, it's more private, you use it all the time, so they were more machamer. By a mavoi, it was more, in general, it's more open and even less private and shared by many people, and therefore they were more mekel. I don't know. She'amidenu bepetach hamavoi v'yeh govo 10 tvachim. So it just has to be by the entrance of a mavoi. Umikol davar she'asenu kasher. And you can make it from anything. Afilu mibalei chaim. You can even make it from an animal. Ubilvad shekshirenu sham b'chavalim l'kotle hamavoi b'teidot she'yotzim min haktalim v'inyan she'enu yachol lirbotz. But you have to just tie it there so it doesn't go away and it doesn't fall down. Kadei shelo yitama'et govo me'asar tvachim. So it doesn't fall down below 10 tvachim. V'afilu kasher sham adam nami havei lechi. And even if you tie a person there for Shabbos and he's stuck there, then it also counts as a lechi. It's probably not a recommended way of doing it. And there's a discussion if he has to know or not know, but at least since he's all tied up, then you can't move anyway. So, okay. Fine, let's go on. Dalet. Now, as long as you have a little bit of a wall on the 4th wall, then that's good enough, and that counts as a lechi. As long as it's a rochav tefach, that works. Okay. And the Mishnah Berurah says, even if it's a mashehu. Okay. Hey. Okay. And we hold even if you didn't put it there lechatchila, kaimulan de lechi haomen me'elav gamkin kasher. Even if a lechi was there by itself, and that's what's left, it also works. Hey, lechi di'i nashi beizika lo matzekai lo chashiv lechi. So we mentioned this by tzuras hapetach. It's the same thing by a lechi. Since the lechi comes to replace a mechitza, so therefore, if it's going to sway in the wind, so then it's pasul, it doesn't work. It has to be where it's solid and it doesn't move in the wind. The Mishnah Berurah says you only have to worry about the bottom 10 tefachim because that's all you need. If let's say it's really tall, the top can sway all you want. It doesn't matter as long as the first 10 tefachim are solid. Okay. Vav. It's important that it can't be, the lechi cannot be more than 3 tefachim away from the wall. As otherwise, that was a takana, needs to be a part of the wall, or mishum heker, whatever it is. But it needs to be within 3 tefachim. You have up to lavud, and if it's farther, it's not called a lechi for the mavoi, and it doesn't work.
Is that both in left and right? In the direction of travel and also to the side? You want to repeat the question?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. We're talking about, let's say you're looking inside. You're facing the opening of 3 walls of the mavoi, and the lechi is within the mavoi. I mean, yeah, the lechi is, we're assuming, again, it depends, but let's assume the lechi is within the walls, and so it juts in, or it juts out is a problem, because it needs to be within the walls. So we'll discuss that. Okay. So it has... If it juts in, it still needs to be 3. Oh, I see what you mean. If it juts in either direction, I think within 3.
The sides also.
The sides?
Yeah, 3. So to the right or left, it's a distance of 3 to the right.
On both sides, yeah. Okay.
So both in the direction of travel and to the side.
Yeah, I think so. Okay. The Mishnah Berurah just points out that if the lechi that you have is more than 3 tfachim, it could be, he says to be machmer, but it could be that you allowed more than 3 tfachim, as long as the wall is wider than that airspace. But, okay, if you got that, great, it's, okay, and, let's see. Okay, I think, let's do a little bit more. Fine, he makes another case, but he says, okay, this was the case. Tzurat HaPetach. I think we sent that in one of the pictures. If you're making a Tzurat HaPetach for that 4th wall, he says it's a mavoi, and lechatchila you should make that Tzurat HaPetach also within 3 tfachim. He says it is a question. It seems to be mitzadeh to say that it would be okay even if it's not within 3 tfachim, but he says you should definitely do it within the 3 tfachim lechatchila. So whether you're building a lechi or building a tzurat petach, try and make it within 3 tfachim. Lechi afilu shvarim v'shivei shvarim ksherim bo. The lechi can be even made up of pieces as long as it's all within, there's no space within 3 tfachim. If you can use, if you're 10 tfachim high, you can make a little bit of, foam or plaster, whatever you're making your rod out of, you can do a little bit here, perhaps even tape. Just a little bit and a little bit and a little bit, and that's fine. Hagav v'lachein osim lechem yisi tachui bakota. You could even make it out of a thin layer of plaster. But you have to make sure that animals or things don't come and wipe it away. Chet lechi shasao me'atzei ashera kasher. A lechi could be made from atzei ashera, because even though atzei ashera, it's avodah zarah and it has to be burnt, and halachically we don't say it has a shear. We say by a lechi, it's true there's a vertical shear, but that's not really counted, and mitzvahs lav lehenas nisnu. So whatever, for a couple of reasons, and at the end of the day you end up with the wall, it's okay because a lechi has no thickness. And also, even if you take the afar from an ashera that's burnt, you're allowed to use the burnt ashes, and that'll count. Alright, we'll stop.